Hello everybody and welcome back to LRN and welcome to F1 Silly Season. The Oscar Piastri fiasco continues in the world of Formula One. We still don't really understand the extent of what's going on in the background, but I'm going to try and break it down for you, go through what's happened so far, do a bit of an overview. We'll discuss how we got to this point, and then we're going to discuss what it's going to mean moving forward, what the driver moves are going to look like, what the rumors are at the moment, and then what I think each team should be doing. And then hopefully with yourselves, get involved in the comments, let me know what you think, let me know where you think certain drivers should be moving to as we progress through the video. So make sure that you're commenting in the comments below. If you are new around here, please do make sure to subscribe to the channel. We are the home of F1 fan opinion, and the more we build the community, the better. So please make sure to get involved. But here we go then. So give you an overview of the Piastri fiasco that we've seen so far. Of course, it all kicked off with Sebastian Vettel leaving Aston Martin, announcing his retirement. Aston Martin then came out and quickly announced that they were signing Alonso on a multi-year contract from the beginning of next season. This came as such a surprise to Alpine that Alpine weren't even aware of it until the press release of Fernando Alonso signing for Aston Martin. They didn't even know it was going to happen. They've then been on the back foot. They obviously need to save face. They've had their #1 driver, the guy they'd pinned their hopes on, they'd pinned Alpine on for the next few years, leave the team with no notice whatsoever. But of course, they have their man. They have Oscar Piastri, their reserve driver, one of the big hopes of F1's future. He's really, really well regarded. And of course, the F2 world champion, not of last season, but the season before. He, of course, missed out on a drive last year to other F2 drivers who didn't manage to beat him in his most recent season. So Oscar Piastri, a really well regarded driver and someone a lot of teams, I'm sure, were interested in getting on the books. Alpine, of course, had pole position on this. They're the ones who brought him up through the ranks in their junior team. So they've had first dibs on Oscar Piastri. So what's happened is they believed in their contract that they had a right to announce him as their driver as part of the contract they had in place with Oscar Piastri. Piastri, however, has clearly decided that that contract is null and void. So the understanding is that from the July 31st was when that agreement that basically Alpine needed to announce Piastri as their driver prior to July 31st. Otherwise, that particular part of the contract became null and void. So Alpine have announced it, and Piastri has immediately come out, 2 o'clock in the morning, his time in Australia, on Twitter, no less, and said that he won't be going there. This is, of course, really, really concerning for Alpine, first of all. But just a note on this, these conversations should not be happening in a public domain, especially Twitter. I cannot condone Piastri going out of his way to just put Alpine in such a terrible position. The team that's brought him through, the team that's, I'm not sure if they funded his way through or he paid, but the team that has supported his progress through the F1 ranks, and now giving him an opportunity not only for a seat in F1 but for a good seat in F1. I know they're having their issues at the moment, but they have been good this season. They are not Haas, they're not Williams, they're not struggling at the back. They're a team that can progress with the right management and leadership. He's completely burnt bridges with the team that's brought him through, and I can't condone that. I think it's absolutely, you know, bite your hand to spite your face kind of deal here. He simply could not make the decision to burn the bridges he has at Alpine. You know, it'd be like sitting in a job for 4 years waiting for a promotion, finally being offered it, and then being like, haha, no, I'm going over here, before you've actually been offered a job elsewhere. It doesn't make any sense. Now, of course, so this is where we kind of get to the situation where actually the rumours are that Piastri's been having meetings behind the scenes with McLaren, and he believes that he's got a seat at McLaren for next season instead of Daniel Ricciardo. That, of course, in itself would be really interesting, but nothing's been announced. McLaren have sort of pushed themselves away from that, saying, no, Danny Rick is our driver. He will be there next year. Danny Rick's made a similar statement. So where this leaves Piastri, I've got no idea. as things stand. But the consensus is that Piastri is confident he has a drive elsewhere, and we believe that to be McLaren. Now, that opens up the door, of course, for Daniel Ricciardo to go back to Alpine. Of course, he was under Renault most recently, but he would be going back to the Enstone outfit under the name of Alpine. Do you think that would be a good move for Alpine? Now, of course, he's a big name within the sport, but do you actually think that's going to help Alpine progress? Is Danny Ric the kind of driver that they need right now? Is he proven that he's capable of leading a team? I mean, that's why McLaren brought him in, and he hasn't done that job. Norris has been the one leading the team. Now, of course, in car development, we don't know what goes on behind the scenes. We don't know how much of McLaren's progress is down to feedback from Ricciardo. Regardless of whether or not he's able to get the most out of the car they've produced, he may have a big hand in producing the car in the first place. So, difficult. He may be someone that can go in and really help that team grow. They, of course, have had him there before, so they know what he brings to the team. But to me, it feels like a panic buy. It feels like, crap, we need to go and get a big name driver. Danny Ric's going to be free if that's where Piastri's going, so let's go get him back, and bring some credibility back to the Alpine outfit, because they're in a shambles at the moment. Piastri hasn't helped that, and he absolutely should not have leaked that information, or sorry, not leaked it, but stated it publicly, that he would not be driving for Alpine the following season. Whoever has given him that advice, in my opinion, has made a catastrophic error of judgment. Yes, this might be the modern world. Everything happens on social media, but there needed to be longer between Alpine's statement and Piastri's what seems like emotional reply, because there's no way he's had a chance to get lawyers to look over all the paperwork, see what the nuances of the contract are, see if he really is tied in to drive for them, or any loopholes that allow him to get out. There's no way he had time for any of that. I have to assume he's taken advice to tell him to post something, maybe to get it in the public domain, get people's attention on it, to help him get out of whatever contractual position he's in. But he's made a mistake, because if he ends up in a situation now where it turns out he is contractually obliged to race for Alpine, he's already ruined that relationship. I'm sure Alpine would still love to have him on board, but it's just a really bad, sour way to start his F1, at least, career relationship with them. Of course, he's been the reserve driver. He's been there for the last few years, but for me, it's just a mess. It's an absolute mess. Alpine have been blindsided, of course. They knew about Vettel's retirement, but for Alonso, they didn't know about Vettel's retirement, but they didn't know Alonso was going to leave. They're blindsided by that. And then they obviously thought it didn't matter because they had Piastri in place, but then he said, no, I'm not driving for you either. It's a mess. So the question is then, do you think Ricciardo would be a good fit for them? Do you think Ricciardo should leave McLaren and go back to Alpine? Of course, things haven't worked out at McLaren as well as Ricciardo would have liked. I don't think it's a good move for Alpine. I do think it's a good move for Danny Ric. I think it keeps him off the F1 grid. I don't think there's going to be that many teams out for him if he does leave McLaren. Of course, he does have the protection of his McLaren contract, though we were told earlier in the season there are exit clauses. So whether or not they are activated, I don't know. But I have been adamant for a while now that Danny Ric will not be at McLaren next season. So for him, I think good move to Alpine. For Alpine, I think bad move to go and get Danny Ric. It feels like a panic move, a panic transfer in the market. I think they could go out and potentially get, hard to get someone more experienced, but maybe get someone more in form. It really depends what they're looking for. If they're feeling like they still need a huge amount of development support from the drivers on the car, maybe Danny Ric's the best of the bunch that are available. But if they want the quickest drivers in their car, then I don't think that he would be the best fit or the best suit. I think they'd be going for him because of the name, not because of the talent. So again, I love Danny Ric, but he just hasn't done anything to show that he's as good as he used to be. I was always adamant that he would be a future Formula One world champion, but time flies, and it unfortunately hasn't happened for him, and I think it has impacted his performances in the race. So I don't think anyone can really argue that. The proof's in the pudding. If he can turn it around and suddenly start putting in race-winning performances, then that would be absolutely fantastic, and I'd love it for him, but I just don't see it happening at this stage of his career. So who do you think Alpine should go and get? assuming that Piastri doesn't get locked into a contract, that Piastri hasn't messed up and said the wrong thing, and actually he is contractually obliged to stay at Alpine, so it will be an Ocon-Piastri partnership. Assuming that doesn't happen and that everyone does break apart, and maybe it is best for all parties that they part ways given the statements that have been made, who do you think should go in the Alpine team to partner Ocon? Do you think maybe Ocon should be the one leading that team now? Has he earned that right? Maybe a Mick Schumacher comes into Alpine as a step up in his career, maybe. Or maybe you think there's another driver on the grid who should be given the opportunity. Maybe again something Gasly. I've seen rumours of Gasly being linked with the drive. I think he could be a good fit. I do think Gasly needs to get out of the Red Bull outfit, get him into the Alpine, let him run that team. Ocon still as a second driver, or maybe they treat them as equals, see who performs better in the car before making a determined decision on who's first and who's second. Maybe Gasly would be a really good fit. I would certainly pick Gasly as at this point of his career over Ricciardo to come into that Alpine. I think it's a better pick for the future of the Alpine team. But we'll see what they go for. But that gives you a bit of an overview of what we've seen. Just an absolute mess in the world of F1. Obviously, silly season, it was expected, but for it to kick off the way it has, it's a really modern way of kicking off. I'm not sure that we've had this before, where a driver's come out so publicly and just denounced a statement made by a team. I think it's absolutely crazy. And it's such a weird thing to be talking about because it just doesn't happen in F1. It's such a football thing to happen, not Formula One, where everything's so squeaky clean normally, and it should be happening behind closed doors. So really going to be interesting to see how this one plays out over the next couple of weeks. I certainly think there'll be a resolution before long because teams want to nail down their drivers over this 2-week period for next season so that they know for the rest of the year, going into next year, what the plans are, who's going to be in place, and then they can plan ahead and work out what they're going to be doing. But going to be an interesting, silly season ahead. But let me know on anything we've talked about so far, what your comments are below. Make sure if you're new around here to subscribe to the channel. Help build up this F1 community and get involved in the comments to, I want to know what you're thinking. What do you think about Ricciardo? Do you think he should still have a seat in the sport? Do you think Gasly would be a better pick? I want to know, what do you think about Piastri's announcement? Do you think he should have stayed quiet, or do you think he was right to go ahead and make a public statement the way that he did, or do you think he was ill-informed to do so? I'm really, really interested to know what you guys think. But anyway, if you did enjoy the content, make sure to give it a like. Otherwise, I'm just going to thank you so much for watching. I hope you have a great day. Goodbye.